Hello.
Hello.
Well, it's quite a magnificent crowd assembled here today, and many of you are down from Prescott. Some of Claire's family, perhaps pretty much all of Claire's family, and friends from many years, from many organizations. It feels a little bit like a Valley Career Women meeting around here. Or perhaps a panache meeting. I'd like to introduce you to Claire's brother, Toby, who is in the brown jacket, and his wife, Susan, in the white sweater, and their daughter, Ginny, and her husband, Jake, and the little boy, Sutton. Is that right?
That's right, you got it.
You say hello, Sutton. Hi.
Say hi, everybody. There you go.
Step away.
Does that work better?
That's fine, don't touch it.
Well, now, I get to be the first person to tell about my favorite memory of Claire. I met Claire at least 30 years ago, and not long after that, I went on a boating expedition up to Lake Powell with her. There were three of us. Julie Tizard, who can't be here today because she's a pilot with United. Do you know Julie Tizard? Oh boy. Well, she couldn't be here because she's flying. But Julie and Claire and I went up in my boat, or took my boat up to Lake Powell for 4 days. And I want to tell you, 3 women can say a lot in 4 days. But in that 4-day period, I didn't know Claire so well until that outing. But in that 4-day period, I never heard Claire say an unkind or critical thing about anybody. And if you want to know, in the 25 odd years since then, I never once heard Claire say an unkind or critical thing about anybody. So let's be inspired. Some of us need that inspiration more than others, who shall remain unnamed. But we zoomed around the lake. We found a nice sandy beach in a cove, and we camped in tents and zoomed around the lake, enjoying the sandstone cliffs and water skiing. And we just had a really fun time. And the other thing that I learned about Claire, maybe I already knew this, is how much she likes to smile.
Yes.
She smiled all the time. And it may have been that she just had really terrific neurotransmitters. And that's why she was so happy. Or it may have been that she had figured out something that I didn't figure out until I was much older, and that is that your mood is determined not by what happens to you, but by what you tell yourself about what happens to you. Because she was a happy woman, and by all my measures, led a happy life. And let us be inspired. Some of us need more inspiration again on this one too. Let us be inspired by our dear friend Claire Bushman, who knew how to be happy. All right. Toby, her brother, is going to speak here in a moment. And I wanted, but before he steps forward, I want to point out that there's a beautiful painting of Claire as a young teenager on my right, and then the box next to her portrait is her ashes that Toby is going to take and do what I'm sure what Claire wanted done with her ashes. So Toby, who is down from Prescott with his wife and family, would you like to step forward?
Not sure I'll need these, but just in case. I know I'll need these. I'm Toby Bushman. I'm Claire's brother, or she used to call me Bro. Unfortunately, I mean, I've met a lot of you here today, but unfortunately I don't know you all that well, so I hope to rectify that a little bit. After this thing is all over, there's going to be the food still left and the wine and drinks, so stick around. I told Nancy that my remarks were going to be 10 minutes, maybe at the most. But then she told me that I should fill you guys in a little bit about what sort of defined Claire. And early on in her life, it sort of made things the way it was. So I'm going to try and keep this light, but you know how that works, these kind of things. I'm talking about the period from when Claire was 9 to 14, and we lived in England. So that was 1954 to 1959, sort of shaped and defined her. Our dad was a pilot for Pan Am, and we lived in the Bay Area in San Francisco. And by that time, we'd already been from Miami. Claire and I were born there. We moved to Houston. We were there, I think, 3 or 4 years. I think it was a little too humid down there, and that didn't work out so well, so they decided to move to San Francisco area. We were there 4 or 5 years, and then Mom and Dad got the old wanderlust and decided that they were going to expose Claire and I to the world. So Dad took a bid to fly out of London, and he did that for 5 years. So now here we are, Claire's 9 years old, and we're going to move to London, England. They came up with this plan that we weren't just going to go to New York and then across to London. We were going to go the long way around, so we could see more of the world. And of course, my mom wanted to see it. My dad had seen a lot of that already. So our first leg was to Honolulu, out of San Francisco. And you got to remember, this was back in 1954, and this whole period, this is before jets came into operation, and things were a lot slower. So our trip from San Francisco to Honolulu, I mean, it's just a guess. I'd say 8-9 hours, something like that. Now you do it in 4.
More.
Is it more? Was it more? And we stayed there with a fraternity brother of my dad's that was working for AT&T, and they had a house on the beach, and we stayed there for 3 or 4 days. Next leg was to Wake Island, and also in a Boeing Stratocruiser, which was a double-decker. You had the area down below was not large, but it was more like a cocktail area, and you had a spiral staircase to go down to it. Well, Claire and I discovered that. And the leg between, on the way to Wake Island, there was another family on board with 2 kids, and the 4 of us went down there and had a world-class pillow fight for about, at least about an hour. It was great. We laughed about that for years. Next stop was Tokyo, where we took the first of many tours. That's what we did for the next 5 years. We took tours and we saw things. We were there for a couple of days, went to Hong Kong, where a friend of my dad's was based with Pan Am. They had a small Orient operation there, so they had kids our age, so it was wonderful. We had a great time there. They showed us all around. Next spot, as I recall, was Calcutta, and then to Karachi. And then somewhere, I'm not sure of the logistics how we got there, but we ended up in Israel and stayed there for 3 or 4 days to see everything that you need to see there. From there, we went to Germany and then on into London. So, so a short trip around. So that's what we did for the next 5 years. And I found a lot of stuff at Claire's house. Anyway, this is a diary she kept in the fall of 1954. So we'd been in England for 6 months, maybe something like that. And in that time, we'd gone through 2 rental houses. They'd gotten Claire and I enrolled in schools. And so our first big holiday, as they call it over there, is to go skiing. And so I'll just read you a few things from Claire's winter holiday diary. December 18th, 1954. Flew into Vienna. There was a little flurry of snow. She was very observant. The next day we took a tour, the first of many. Saw the Vienna woods. And the very next day we took another tour, of course. In the afternoon, she says, my brother, father, and I went to the American consulate to get gray cards for the train to go through the Russian zone to Kitzbühel, Austria, which is where we were going to stay for a couple of weeks. So things were a little different back then. So we were there for 2 weeks. On December 23rd, Claire says, had my first skiing lesson. We bought a Christmas tree, decorated it with popcorn, angels, cookies, and bows. A couple of days later, December 25th, went skiing in the morning and the afternoon. There was a party in the dining room. Chris Kringle was there. And he fed us all candy. Later in the evening, we went to an ice hockey show, she called it. Kitzbühel beat Oxford 4-3. So we stayed there for, gosh, it was, I think, over 2 weeks. December 30th, she says, went up in a car-like thing, which is in the air to 3,000 feet. It was very scary. On January 5th, we went to a Tyrolean dancing and yodeling show and came home at midnight. We were pretty busy. So January 8th, it's time to go back to London. And she says, went on the train to Borgel and switched trains and went on to Munich. The train was late getting in, and we had to take a taxi to the airport just so we could make the flight back to London. When we got to London, our car was stuck, and we watched a wrecker pull it out. The end. So that was the end of that trip. Okay, so that was January of 1955. So Claire and I went back to our respective schools. She was in a girls' school, and I was in a young men's school. And we went through, we went Monday to Friday.